Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just trying to decide if I want to do this with the light on or off. Getting to do the solstice, guys. It's dark real early. It's not even, well, okay, in saying it's not even 5 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock now, but it's been getting dark for like a half hour. It gets dark at like 4:30. It's fun. It's cool. Big changes in fall. A wonderful, wonderful time. The most wonderful time of the year. Or perhaps that's when kids go back to school, which I guess COVID squished that. So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tristan. I've been working with Elemental Growth for 3 years come February, and I welcome you all to my live at 5. Today, to touch on a few sensitive topics that make the most wonderful time of year a little bit more complex than that. I feel compelled to talk and speak on grief today. It's been a bit of a reoccurring theme for myself, for other people, and then I know in general there's a whole science and statistic around seasonal depression and why this time of year can be difficult. It reminds us of that grief, the people we've lost, the people who won't be sharing, you know, this experience or others' experiences, depending on the type of loss. You know, one of the reasons that this comes up and to help you guys navigate through, if this is something that you're experiencing at this point, seasonal depression. And, even Mel Gibson once said people get really funny around the silly season. People get really sad around the silly season. And I may want to cross reference this before I say it, but I do believe I have even heard that this time of year has the highest rates of suicide and self harm. Double check that just before we speak on it. So, the reason for this, a more natural reason for the seasonal depression, outside of the fact that there is a lack of vitamin D, which is absolutely crucial to our health. It is probably the most important aspect and vitamin that you could possibly need for the healthiest lifestyle you can have is a healthy amount of vitamin D. And especially when it gets dark at 4:30 and then the sun comes up at 8 in the morning. Yeah, that's 8 hours a day, 8 hours of sunlight a day at this point. It's not a lot of vitamin D. And then you throw in the weather and it gets cloudy and cold, and then people don't want to go outside. So then you're experiencing the withdrawal from nature deficit disorder. This is absolutely a true thing. You can get withdrawal and physical depression from not being outside and in nature. And then there's a lack of vitamin D. And then, energetically speaking, and this is a key point that I'd like to make for everybody to use this as a tool, is that this time of year, fall, beginning winter, the solstice, this is the peak time of release, where we are releasing and purging out anything negative and all the toxic things that really don't suit us anymore. And one area that I would like everybody to be very mindful of is that sometimes our bodies, the universe, our angels, our guides, our totems, they know what's best for us much better than we do. And we ourselves don't want to give up these toxic areas of life. Sometimes it's relationships, sometimes it's lessons. Sometimes there's more, it's a release for a good thing. But as Ashley always words it, you have to go through the hell in order to get through the heaven. And thus comes the new year, new beginnings. You have to release, you have to make space for all the good to come. And if you don't release, if you keep it in, it's very much like a hoarder that keeps just keeping. They buy and they consume, but they won't get rid of anything to make room for what they brought in. You will see this quite commonly. I know I have personally through both parents, and through furniture. Is people will bring home furniture and they won't want to make room. They won't want to get rid of the old furniture because it's still usable, but then there's no room for the new furniture either, and then the house just becomes a cluttered mess. And people do this with boxes, they do this, you know, spiritually. We do this with our phones. You have to clear out the memory. I think this is a good reference point that everybody should be able to relate to. It's on some level is, digital data. There's only so much space, and it's absolutely true for ourselves, for our lifestyles. So we go through the seasonal depression for numerous reasons: physiological, emotional, biochemical, and purge is so important. And this is where it comes in handy to understand that if we don't make room, if we hold on to these things that don't serve us, that's only going to aid in prolonging the good to come. It's going to hinder, our happiness, and it's going to put us back further from where we need to be. And sometimes dealing with grief and processing these losses are not easy on top of everything else going on. One thing that I absolutely love, it's a good parable. Ashley mentioned it earlier, and I'll go more in depth and relate it to grief and, being able to release, go through these hard times at this time of year. Is the parable of the Chinese farmer. There is a parable of the farmer, slightly different story that's about planting seeds, and as long as you plant enough, you'll get a return on your investment. Chinese farmer, as Ashley stated from, her 12 o'clock today. Alan Watts does a really great YouTube on this. It's about 2 minutes long. And to recap, if anybody missed the 12, uh, Chinese farmer has a beautiful farm with a beautiful horse and stallion. One day, the stallion runs away. It's Pied steed. So all the neighbors come and say, they pity party and they say, "Oh, that's a shame. That's awful. That's too bad." The farmer says, "Well, maybe." And a few days later, the steed returns with other wild horses. and more prized stallions. And all the neighbors gather around and congratulate and say, "Oh my goodness, aren't you so fortunate?" And the farmer says, "Well, perhaps, maybe." A few days later, his son, riding one of the steeds, trying to tame it, falls off and breaks his leg. All the farmers get together for a tea party again and they say, "Oh my goodness, what horrible misfortune. What bad luck." And the farmer says, "Well, maybe." And then a few days later, the Conservancy comes through with the military recruiting people for the draft. And they pass over the son and let him stay. He does not need to go to war because he has a broken leg, which the neighbors all get together for a celebration and say, "Wow, what good fortune, what good luck." The farmer says, "Well, perhaps, maybe." Alan Watts does an absolute incredible breakdown of a segment called Black Implies White. And it is the concept around, there really is no good nor evil. Everything is perception, and you truly can't have one, the yin yang concept without the other. And so to iterate this, we know the color black is black because we directly contrast and compare it to white. And so black can only be black when it is compared to white. And black next to other black items, well, they look more gray or different shades of black. And the same with 90s kids. Where are you? The difference of white, the different shades of white and beige. But you need a solid, true form of white, which is only that contrast comparable to black. So to say something is black is to imply white, and to say something is white is to directly imply black. And this is the theories behind good and bad, good and evil, positive and negative. And in truth, it is perception. And for anybody who's going through the integration process and self mastery and self development, when you have stepped into the energy shift into synchronicities, you will find that these points of what we feel are bad, evil, negative experiences really are for our benefit. And as it implies, we have to go through the bad so that we understand what good is. And also, we have to go through good so we appreciate it because we then understand what bad is. And usually, one is the definition lacking of the other. Something that is bad is simply a situation lacking good, and something that is good is a situation that is wholly lacking bad. It reminds me very similar of my concept of failure. By definition, failure is the lack of success. You have not succeeded yet. You have not created or accomplished your goal. Now, this is not failing at it, this is just something that simply has not taken place in time yet. Failure, by definition, means it doesn't exist. I hope that helps some of you on days where you might be being hard on yourself or feeling that you haven't succeeded, that you are failing, or those of you who may have that negative self talk of feeling that you're a failure, is that failure does not exist. You simply haven't succeeded yet. It's just something in time that hasn't taken place. And, to really get mind trippy, it's like the existence of a child or yourself. You at one point did not exist. That does not mean you have failed at life at that point. You just had not succeeded at being born yet. And, we will at some point not, quote unquote, exist again in the future. And everything is that contrast. much like a frequency, an actual sound frequency. Um, if you think of a guitar string where you pluck it and you let it go and it goes back and forth, the sound is only that one sound when it is going from a specific distance from point A to point B. And as it slows down, it becomes quieter. But for that one specific pitch, you need both sides of the revelation to make that frequency. And so, although it can and definitely is hard, especially emotionally in this time of year, I'd just like to, with love and respect and positivity, remind you that what you are going through right now is neither good nor bad. It just perhaps is maybe, because it will imply both. One thing that I would also like to remind people is that, and this is an interesting concept, I was going over types of educational tools and resources that I enjoy, and one was a analysis talk by a former CIA agent, and they were explaining that through and from the point of an analysis person who does analyses and can't take it seriously gives a report to a company, or if you think of like the president has the oh self-defense minister, and they get technical reports and analysis based off best case and worst case scenario. And what's interesting to bear in mind at all times, so we don't get blindsided by this simple little detail, that just because something is the worst case scenario does not imply or mean that it is going to be the rarest scenario. Sometimes the worst case scenario is actually the highest. And for people who are perhaps a bit more on the superstitious side, will know and understand the concept that just because something is the best case scenario may make it the rarest, like in the sense of, say, winning a lottery, luck in general. But the thing is, there is no good and there is no bad. There is such thing as neutral, but that is just stagnant, not moving. We actually don't want neutral, we want progression. We want an interval, and as they say, the calm before the storm, or the things get worse before they get better. You almost on a scientific level of understanding quantum physics, that you need both. You need the bad, because then comes the good, and then comes the bad, and it's just the natural cycle of progression. Neutral is when nothing is taking place. And when nothing is taking place, you are then a drifter, because you are not making a decision to go one direction or the other. Or you can even choose a full interval and choose the direction of both paths. Have your cake and eat it too. Perhaps just have two cakes. And Ashley has referenced Napoleon Hill's Outwitting the Devil, or Interview with the Devil if it's the YouTube audiobook, so many times. And the devil is the drifter, the procrastinator, the neutral. One thing that came to me the other week when I was meditating and having my own ritual, beautiful message that came through, which was, and for those who have worked with us with affirmations and whatnot, we understand the phrasing of the I am, because I am is who and what we are. And what became very clear to me the other day is the I am is also our specific actions. If you ask a child to do a task, or if you are being asked to do a task, let's use the child metaphor first, and the child can respond to one of two things, perhaps a third one, which you wouldn't be asking. He can respond, I will, or he can respond, I am. And the I am is the action that we are doing. So the I am is not just who we are. We can quite literally quote Batman here, which who we are underneath, is not who we are. It's not who we are underneath. It's what we do that defines us. Our actions are our I am. And so to take action, to fight procrastination, it does become who you are internally and as a person. And a common question that comes up is how to fight procrastination? How do you start? How do you just do it? Some things that are perhaps less stress oriented, or perhaps even less priority. The easy things. It's easy to go and do something. Or sometimes it can be really hard and you'll sit down and it won't come. There will be a blockage. And so I would like to share with you steps around getting through these kind of blockages, these big blockages for procrastination. And it is to put it into your scheduler. It's really important to set deadlines. And the thing is, even if you don't meet the deadline, and make sure nobody's looking or hearing me say this, but even if you internally have no intention of ever meeting that deadline, by setting a deadline, it subconsciously affects your actions. And the fact is that once you've set a deadline, you have started. You are no longer procrastinating. You've set a deadline to accomplish something and achieve your goal by. And it's good that in that deadline time, you can take steps and you can add in different action steps every day of what meeting that deadline looks like. Sometimes, and what I like to do is before I have started, I set a deadline saying I'm going to start a new project by next Tuesday. So in the time between now and next Tuesday, I will take each day and I will strategically plan out the steps, the individual action steps I need to have started by next Tuesday. And then the final action step will be commencing the action. And to reiterate and narrow it down again, best way to start from procrastination to action is set a deadline. And then it has commenced. And you have started. One simple, quick decision. And then people will ask or question themselves about doubts. They will have doubts, they will have ants, they will have internal negative thoughts. And people will need motivation and inspiration. Finding the inspiration and the motivation to even set the deadline has been difficult for people. And they've asked me, how do they find their inspiration? How do you really start? How do you get through these doubts? And a core element to this that is really good to remember is that we get motivated by certain hobbies. by certain practices, by certain daily el- elements in our daily routine. Things that usually it's around self-care. Usually it's around finding that one thing each day that makes the day really worth getting up and living. And if you had one thing, just pick one thing to do in that day that's going to motivate you. If you just do that, you've had a good day. Therefore, it is lacking in negativity because you have had that one positive experience. And I want to really stress for people that it is so important on staying on top of things that you have gratitude for. It is so important to keep these journals, to be able to look back on the days where maybe you can't remember what empowered you last time. Maybe you've had a certain sequence of events take place that, somehow what used to make you really happy would be warm bath. And then you're just not feeling it. You're not feeling that that one thing is going to be enough. With self-empowerment, we need to remember that this isn't a one-time occurrence. It isn't like you have a ceremony or a ritual, and it's not like being given superpowers. It feels like it. It very much does. And this is where the long-term integration comes into play, is that you get motivated, you get inspired, you get empowered in that one moment. And you have to learn to teach yourself to repeat this moment again and again and again and again. And it has to be a self perpetuating empowerment. And this is something that you need to learn to do for yourself. That's going to be the key, the biggest key element to getting through this time of year. If you have seasonal depression, if you're going through these changes that cause loss, that cause grief, if you're going through these changes of fall release, and if you are resistant and it's hard to let go, it's finding the positivity, finding the gratitude in the being happy now. It's breaking the situation down into the exact same kind of schedule that I was referring to with procrastination, is understanding what you need to do and picking a date that you need to do it by. So if it's something like find motivation, I have somebody I'm working with right now who's asked to help find inspiration. And, by setting a date to work with me, they have now set a deadline. And for ourselves, for each other, those of you watching, set a deadline for finding that motivation, finding what's going to empower you. And make sure that you go through the strategic steps of sometimes it really is just 1% a day. I was having this conversation with somebody else as well. 1% a day, one hack a day. Our 28-day program is absolutely phenomenal for helping us find these empowerment moments and these moments of inspiration and aspiration and motivation and all the shuns. Because when you do your like a gratitude journal every day, it's something that by doing the action and doing those steps, you are ingraining it into your memory. As well as if you make affirmations out of it, it further helps you be able to bring this tool, say, to the tip of your tongue or to your fingertips when you need it. And the less you have to sit and meditate over what's going to help me get through this moment or these dark times. These little things every day, to find them. If you're dealing or relating this to procrastination, find just the one thing. If you can get two, that's even better. But find the one thing that for your project, if you could do one thing that's going to make the biggest difference to get you from your step tomorrow up to where your goal of success is, and then just focus on that one thing, that 1%. If you can get two things, it gets you there twice as quickly. They definitely recommend find two things. I like the number three, three things. And this is a technique that I use with the chakra analysis. When you're going through the chakras, find three things in your root chakra that make you feel safe and secure. Find three things in your sacral chakra that give you pleasure and happiness. Find three things in your solar plexus that give you the motivation, inspiration, aspiration, all the shuns. Find three things in your heart that you love, your hobbies, and again, it plays directly into the motivation, what gets you up early. Writing them down, making a schedule, and I'm really excited to actually get into the nitty gritty of the psychology behind that in a moment, is by using pencil or pen and paper, the way that we have transcribed messages for 300,000 years, I believe, is the current record for finding cave drawings and cave dwellers and people who were alive back then leaving messages. We've always etched in stone or used a tool and put it on paper. Nothing digital. Don't do your notes digital. It's not the same effect on your body and your mind. Do it on pen and paper. And when you write things out, it subconsciously affects your thinking to be geared towards, and you're programming the algorithm in your brain, so to speak, the filter, to look for opportunities that match the action steps to get to where you want to be to succeed. Gratitude journals, write down three things or one thing that will make the biggest difference to help you get there. Personal development, if you are writing down one thing that gives you motivation, if you're writing down one thing that gives you something from any of the chakras, 1 to 3 things that you write down, it has the same strategic effect on your subconscious. It has an effect on your mind and your perception of everything around you. And you will see the energy shift into synchronicity by aligning yourself to this path. I would even like to, and I say this because, and I feel it's important to kind of touch on this topic, is we teach this to people, and people don't always understand or see the relevance to it. They think it's maybe more, I don't know. It's like they don't quite take it seriously. Maybe it's superstition or witchcraft or whatnot. And some people are resistant, and these are the people who don't progress. I'm going to tell you a quick little story here. I was watching yesterday a new movie with Gerard Butler, The Law Abiding Citizen, I believe it is, that came out on Netflix. If you're not into gore or whatnot, not that it was super gory, but there was a few parts. Uh, Good movie, amazing movie from the standpoint of tactics and strategy. And this one character is smart. He is, super more intelligent in the movie, who outsmarts the FBI, Homeland Security, CIA, the entire court system, all the police, and he's always one step ahead of everybody. And they put it out there, well, he's ex-military, he was a tactician. So I'm thinking, this is interesting. I want to be the smart man. How do I do this? So I started doing some research, and what makes me feel really internally good, and what I'd like to really impress upon all of you watching, is that when I found cliffhanger, right? Clickbait. When I found what was being referenced and what was being spoken about as the type of training that somebody in the military and these high strategy colonels and generals and the people who command wars, and they command the troops, and they have this serious training for predicting what's going to come next, falls into the same category of exactly what I'm sharing with you. And when I realized the type of strategy that was being referred to, what's taught to these high-end military generals, it all clicked and it fell into place for me, because this is the same type of course criteria that you find and that you pay coaches and trainers $10,000 per course to teach you. And it is the same journaling method that we are giving to you here free on this call. It is such a high end educational piece that really rich people, and you can find all these different really rich, successful people throughout the ages giving you this tip and these tricks and advice throughout the ages. And as I said in the beginning, people, I don't know, they think it's superstition, they think it's fluffy, light, it doesn't work. This is like an age old strategy of military tactics, of you journaling. You write down your goal, you sit and you do your dream vision board, you put down everything that you want in your perfect, pristine future. And then you kind of work backwards, through, say, a 10-year plan of what steps you're going to have to take to get there. And you can whittle it all the way back to the procrastination stage of, I'm going to start next week. Start with the deadline, and you journal 1 to 3 things of the most top priority actions that you can do to get you to your goal. If you just did that one hack every day for the rest of the next 10 years, you'll be at your goal by doing and figure it out. It's individually and independently unique to each person. Some people want to own a Ferrari, some people want to get an RV, some people want many Ferraris and many RVs, and possibly a helicopter pad on the roof. Maybe an ultralight on the roof, totally. And so those are, and for the reasons that I have stated, the best methods for fighting procrastination, for finding that empowerment. And, the more you do it, as I said, the more you write it down, the more you journal, the more really etch this into your brain and your subconscious, you are reprogramming your default mode network. Your basic actions of what happens when you say panic and you get into a fight flight mode, fight or flight mode, and it is your first trained reaction to go to without any thought process. And the more you can refine that, the more you can jump into action to get to where you want to be. And sometimes, as I said at the beginning, and to be honest, I was trying to look up the Christmas suicide rates, and my thumb hit a button, and then the whole window closed, and I don't have time to get it back up on my phone at the moment yet. Um, but this can be a hard time of year, and going through these changes and the releases, sometimes finding that empowerment isn't just a once a month thing. Sometimes it isn't even a once a week thing. Sometimes it's every few hours. You're having an off day, and you just gotta keep finding that one step, that one hack that's going to get you through the day, because getting through the day then becomes one thing that you can do to help get to where you want to be in your 10-year plan. 100,000%, ladies and gentlemen, make a plan. Schedule it in. This is a strategic military tactic that has been used for millionaires and billionaires and the elites and military generals throughout the ages. You can do it for yourself. You can have your Ferrari, you can have your home with a pool, you can have your dream job, your dream family. Really take it seriously. Take the time, write out your plan. If you are going through a hard time and you don't know where to start, you don't have that motivation. This is kind of the most basic breakdown that I can give you in a worst case scenario. If you don't have the step to get you up in the morning and you're really fighting that seasonal depression, your step is to make a plan. When you have it written out and you can then refine it down and down and again and again and again to be one word or one action, then you have a pretty good plan. And by then, you can set a deadline and then you can start. One thing that I would also like to share, to an extent of sharing anyway, is as I was speaking with good and bad and you need the full interval, one thing that has come to my attention going through, uh, for anybody who followed last week or has seen the video, I'm going through a bit of a issue with my daughter and her medical health. And because I took a stand against the medical system and I really put my foot down and said, no, I don't want her having these cancer causing treatments to help her illness. Well, I am now dealing with a contempt of court issue and being told I can't see my daughter because I wanted what I felt was best and safest for her. And so that is the grief that I am experiencing. Any parent, any parent should never be apart from their child, especially at what's supposed to be one of the happiest times of year. And going through this grief, being a parent torn from a child, and frankly not the first time that this has occurred. There's fight and flight mode. And what I've learned is that one is not better or worst case scenario. You equally get physically stressed out by being in both flight mode, where you are terrified of everything and you avoidant, and you really lose that motivation. You just want to sit and say hibernate until the situation passes. And there is fight mode. And I can tell you from experience, and I am cautioning anybody who may be experiencing this as well, to take your personal time. Take the time that you have. Again, write out your plan, go through your schedule, journal in what might be missing. And if you find yourself, as I have, in a constant state of aggravated fight mode, because I'm a male and I want my kid, and males, I think, naturally are the fight, the fire, the yin energies, and female, just basic concepts of Eastern philosophy here, not getting into gender debates, but females would fall into the flight category, the softer the water element. And you can very easily make yourself very sick and very have ailments from being too severely to one side and to the other. And so, not to say that you want a neutral ground, but you can definitely learn to recognize your body's symptoms. You can learn to recognize your own stress levels, and you can monitor. And journaling and documenting helps you keep track of these things. When you need to schedule in more motivation, go back and schedule through the me time, the stuff that makes you want to get up in the morning. Yes, being in a state of fight mode, you want to get up in the morning and you want to fight. It's very stressful. And when your body has, these stress hormone cortisol levels that are peaked and your body is responding in a case where you physically are left feeling like you need to fight for your life or you will die, it affects you emotionally. Very much so, in the same sense where if you are in such a state of terror that you need to run because if you get into any kind of confrontation, your body's perceiving it as a physical threat to your life. And when these hormone cortisol levels are that spiked, you're going to get ailments, you're going to get issues, you're going to get psoriasis, you're going to get upset stomachs, you're going to get migraines, headaches, stress rashes, you're going to get inflammation, you're going to get all these side effects that people are going to run to the doctors and say, fix me, fix me, fix me. As an example, kind of like staying in an abusive relationship. When you're supposed to release and do what is best for you, you are supposed to give up a video game addiction because when you sit and game all day, you get nothing productive done and then you fall behind. And that stresses you out because then, say, for example, your job or relationship or family may be in jeopardy due to lack of action. Trying to cover all the basis of what people can, this is where our addictions, to help you understand, this is where addictions come from, is the coping mechanisms. People get into pain relief, opiates, Valium. I was on Advil since I was 8 for migraines. These are the areas that we help you understand and deal with the internal conflicts that need untangling. And as I said, it's a simple process of starting just by writing out and journaling and finding those moments, those motivations each day that make you want to get up. And in this case, when I'm talking about high cortisol levels, find the things that make your life enjoyable. This is going to be your sacral chakra. and finding hobbies, finding things to do, finding the I ams, finding the actions that you can do that make you who you are as a person. And when you find them, write them down. It's a it's a balance that you want to meet, that you want to ascertain between, again, good and bad. And there's really it's perhaps maybe there's no more one way or the other. Sometimes if the think of a guitar string being stretched too far, you're going to damage the string. And it's just like our bodies, and it's just like our perceptions around good and evil, good or bad. And it's when we're able to find this balance where we can do this 1 to 3 things a day that help us work towards our goals, that help us to de stress and let our physical selves know that we are not in danger. This is what will keep you healthy. This is what will give you the balance of having a stable body, mind, and soul to do those actions that need to be done to get you to be where you want to be. So to reiterate and to loop back through to how I started with grief, to give you a personal perception of how I'm using this time for my strategy. I have extra time. I don't not see my daughter entirely. It's just gone from every other week to 4 days a month, which is a big gap. But this gives me time to do my strategy. This gives me the extra time to sort out what actions I need to do for her health as well as for mine and for business. This gives me the extra time. This gives me that release of having room and space that was filled with time as a parent can and now will be used for productive purposes, such as business, personal health care. And when we're able to, take those steps and do the 1 to 3 hacks a day, it eases the grief because then, as Ashley always puts it, we turn the power into productivity. We are turning the hell into heaven. You're taking your passion and you're making it action. And then your actions are going to feed your passion. So if and or when you are going through seasonal depression, hard release, letting go, grief, missing someone, remember the perhaps. Maybe this is a better situation than you realize. Find your hacks, set your deadlines, write your journals, and then what will even help further is once you have fine-tuned what you've journaled, you can make this into affirmations. Because then you're dealing with the throat chakra and you are fine tailoring the self talk. And you are then telling yourself you are the little engine that knew he could. And you are reiterating that subconsciously into your mind, and your actions will follow. You are your actions. The I am is the I am. It's who you are. Ashley gave me a really wonderful example of this that I'm going to share with you. If you are the person who wants to lose weight and you want to go to the gym, but it's hard, it's just hard, and you're procrastinating, start with small, tactical, strategic action steps to get you into the gym because you want to be a fit person from the gym, but you need to be a person at the gym in general first. So you then become every day the person who puts on your gym shoes and set a deadline. I'm going to put on my gym shoes every day for the next 7 days. Meet your deadline. If you miss your deadline, set a new deadline. Even if you intend, consciously or subconsciously, to miss your deadline, still set a new deadline. And every day, do your best to do that one hack, step, trait, that one something, that one motivation. Every day I'm going to get out of bed and I'm going to put my gym shoes on. And then after there, add in the next step. Every day after I put my shoes on, I'm going to drive to the gym. Even if you don't go in, drive to the gym. Guaranteed, once you're there, you're going to get in, especially with gas prices being what they are. So you then become the person who goes to the gym in general. You are now a gym person, even if you only stay for 5-10 minutes. You hear this a lot with musicians and anyone who's really practicing a skill. 5 minutes a day. Is it enough to make you a master in the long term? Perhaps, maybe. Logically, they say no. You can't just only do 5 minutes a day every day for 10 years and really have the same skill as somebody who does, say, 10 hours a day every day for 10 years. The thing is, you then become the person who is doing it every day. It is your I am. Practice the guitar. I am. 5 minutes a day. Not I will. I am. Go to the gym. I am. And then set your next deadline. I'm going to be at the gym for 20 minutes. Or the 20 minutes I'm there, I'm actually going to be move, be movement, be moving up and mobile. I'm going to walk for 20 minutes. I'm going to row um, for 20 minutes. I'm going to do the elliptical, the bicycle, cycle for 20 minutes, treadmill, walk, and then you can jog for 20 minutes. You just keep adding to it. Diets, again, it's the same concept. Just set a deadline, find the one action that's going to make the biggest difference, and just write it out. Journal. It's a good, solid strategy. This kind of information is what you get from people who cost $10,000. Tell military generals, let's do it, guys. It's important stuff. If you're going through a bad or a good time right now, remember how to keep it balanced. Remember that as bad as things may seem, if you're going through grief, perhaps it's bad. So commonly, as I spoke of when I did the shift into synchronicities, the energy shift into synchronicities, you'll look back on these moments of darkness and you will think, wow, did I ever dodge a bullet there? Sometimes breakups, abusive relationships, you're pulled from them or you're forced out of them and you don't want to let go. And then you look back and think, wow, what my life would have been. What a shit show it could have been if I didn't leave. If that force wasn't made upon me. And so everything is happening for you and with you, through you and to you. If you found what we discussed here today helpful, write us in, give us a testimony. Great time of year. Let us know your action steps. Let us know your hacks. Share some the practical everyday experience that you're doing to implement these actions and these strategies. As well, share it with a friend. Share this link, share this video with anybody who is going through grief, going through seasonal depression, having trouble letting go. People who need that internal healing. The more you share our message, the more it helps other people understand what we're doing, and it helps them understand how we can aid you um, to getting to the life that they deserve and where you want to be. See you all next Sunday, which means, let me just look at my calendar. I should know this. I believe Christmas will Boxing Day. I will see you all on Boxing Day. Wishing you all a happy Hanukkah, solstice, holiday, Christmas. Regardless, I will see you.